The Ryugyong Hotel is with 330 meters the highest building in North Korea and stands in the middle of Pyongyang. In the metropolis, which is home to millions of people, there are several prominent monuments and buildings. But this pyramid puts everything else in the shade. Literally. You can still see the unique building from several kilometers away. It was once supposed to be the highest hotel in the world and a flagship for the country. The foundation stone for the building was laid more than 30 years ago. Only a few years later, the rough scaffolding was in place. Yet to this day, the hotel has not received a single guest. The entire building has been empty for decades. Why? What does it look like from the inside? And will people ever be able to spend the night there? North Korea is one of the most isolated countries in the world. The totalitarian regime almost never allows real glimpses of life in the dictatorship. Nevertheless, how North Korea looks to the outside world is extremely important to the country. Since time immemorial, the government has had imposing prestige buildings erected in the capital Pyongyang. Glittering skyscrapers and impressive monuments are supposed to prove how modern, rich, and stable the country is. In order to understand the Ryugyong Hotel, we need to briefly look at the history of the country. Until 1945, Korea is a Japanese colony. This changes with the surrender of Japan in the Second World War. Korea is divided between the victorious powers into two occupation zones. The south is occupied by the USA, the north by the Soviet Union. As a result, South Korea develops into a democracy and opens up to the world. North Korea becomes a totalitarian state under the flight of communism. The two countries become enemies. The conflict culminates in the Korean War in 1950. It lasts 3 years and claims over 4 million lives. This war cemented the division of Korea. Since then, this line at the 1830th parallel separates the citizens of the peninsula. There may have been a ceasefire since the end of the war, but violent incidents continue to occur. The relationship remains icy. Let's jump ahead a few decades. South and North Korea are still arch enemies. In 1986, a South Korean company builds a hotel in Singapore. At the time, it is the tallest hotel in the world. 2 years later, South Korea hosts the Olympic Games. An insane amount of prestige for a country. The North Korean dictator at the time, Kim Il-sung, does not like these developments at all. So the regime strikes back. In 1989, it organized its own version of the Olympic Games, the World Youth and Student Games. Over 10,000 people from 177 countries visit the capital. Among them were 850 guests from the GDR. In the run-up to the event, the country spends $4 billion to beautify Pyongyang for its visitors. The money will be used to build new roads and stadiums. And a new hotel is also to be built. It is to surpass that of the South Koreans by 104 meters. The tallest hotel in the world would henceforth be in North Korea. For comparison, it would be a good deal higher than the Eiffel Tower. The plans for the Ryugyong Hotel are unique. The building is to consist of 3 wings. They each slope at a 75-degree angle and converge to form a cone at the top. The shape is reminiscent of a pyramid, a mountain, or perhaps a rocket. Some 3,000 rooms are to be spread over 105 floors. In total, the hotel has a usable area of 360.000 square meters. It will also house a bowling alley and a nightclub. At the top of the hotel, at the very top of the cone, 5 restaurants are also to move in. So that the 360-degree panorama can be enjoyed properly, this part is even to be able to rotate. So in 1987, North Korea begins construction of the hotel. 2 years later, just in time for the North Korean World Festival, it is to be ceremoniously opened. Floor by floor of the 105 floors are built. The shell of the building is getting higher and higher. But it soon becomes clear that opening just 2 years after the start of construction was a bit too ambitious. The international guests are accommodated in other hotels. The date for the opening is postponed to 1992. But in 1991 the Soviet Union collapses. The Cold War is over. With the end of the USSR, North Korea loses its most important backer and supporter. A year later, the hotel has reached its 330-meter height. It now towers over everything in its vicinity. But it is far from finished. A ceremonial opening remains to be held. At that time, the construction had already cost around $750 million. North Korea lacks the money to continue. In 1993, work is stopped completely. And for a long, long time. The former prestige project becomes the nation's eyesore. The hotel does not even have windows. Only the gray shell stands. A gloomy colossus of concrete. On the roof, an abandoned crane has been rusting away for years. Meanwhile, the North Korean population suffers from bitter poverty in the suburbs. At the time, the country is plunged into a severe economic crisis. A massive famine breaks out. Supply shortages, power outages, no healthcare. Kim Jong-il is now the country's new dictator. He does not want to show any weakness to the outside world. In many cases, he refuses urgently needed humanitarian aid for political reasons. At the same time, the Ryugyong Hotel suddenly disappears from official photographs. The regime has pictures of Pyongyang partially edited before they are published. The miserable condition of the construction site, emblematic of the country's decline, is erased. Almost 15 years after construction was halted, it suddenly resumes. The Egyptian telecommunications company Orascom is to finally complete the hotel's window and facade construction as part of a larger deal. In 2011, Kim Jong-il dies. His son Kim Jong-un comes to power. In the same year, work on the hotel is completed. The German luxury hotel group Kempinski announces that it will create 150 hotel rooms in the upper part of the building. The long-awaited opening of the prestigious building is finally within reach. But it is in vain. In 2013, Kempinski cancels the project due to heightened political tensions between North Korea and the West. To this day, the hotel has never opened. No one is allowed to enter the building. Not a single guest has ever stayed in one of the countless planned rooms. Even the most beautiful facade cannot distract from the fact that the walls inside are beginning to crumble. Experts suspect that the hotel's construction is not really solid. The huge mass of concrete lacks a supporting steel structure. In 2014, a similar concrete-only skyscraper already collapsed in Pyongyang. For now, instead of good hotels, North Korea remains known for nuclear weapons testing, its action movies, and an oppressed people in poverty. Since 2018, the building has been used for propaganda. Thousands of LEDs have been installed on the facade. On the screens, 4-minute videos run in a loop. They show the history of North Korea and contain political slogans. At the top, a huge North Korean flag shines above the big city. Over time, a symbol of supposed strength, prosperity and power has become a symbol of North Korea's megalomania and the failure of the totalitarian dictatorship. If you look behind the facade, you see the bitter reality. If you liked the video, subscribe to never miss another video. Post a comment if you know an interesting topic that we can do next.